Sweet surrender as I love, serve, and remember.
Home is when we feel safe as well, right? We can feel, when we feel enough, we feel safe within ourselves. We feel safe in the world. It's hard to feel at home if we don't feel safe. So a lot of times I'm sorry, what was your? Angela. As Angela shared, sometimes our physical home or our home of our origin didn't feel safe, but we can find safety in ourselves, in God, and each other, because it's hard to really thrive if we don't feel safe. That's such a core element of our full expression. If we're on earth to feel connected with one another, but also to express fully who we are, there has to be some safety to feel like we can express who we are. And what I love about this idea of belonging is belonging gives us both. Belonging gives us that sense of connection that we long for, and it also gives us that foundation to thrive, to be fully empowered. We feel safe to go out and challenge ourselves and to try new things because we know we belong somewhere, at the very least within us. So I've been being with this idea of belonging, and then I just want to share this little journey of the Divine Mother here. Because I just wanted to have a prop today. So this was a painting or a picture, painting that I had in my altar at home. And I thought, I'll bring it to church. And so I brought it to church. And it's had different places, but for a long time it was up over here. And then I'm going to put it down. I'm going to drop it. And then when we redecorate, thank you, Tree. When we redecorate, we move things around. And so she got moved to back there on the table. It's fine. I liked her up here, but she didn't fit. The coloring at the time was different, so she didn't fit. So she was back there. And then this morning, I thought, I might bring her home. So when I usually come in here early in the morning and turn on the lights, heat, and I couldn't find her anywhere. Like, where did she go? And she was behind the screen there. And I'm like, now she's invisible. She went from being all the way in the front to in the back to invisible. Often when we don't feel like we belong, just as generalities, often it's because of two things. We feel rejected or we feel invisible. So rejection is, I don't like that painting and I'm hiding her, which was not the case. So often the case why we don't feel like we belong is we feel invisible. We don't feel like we're seen. So much of belonging is both I resonate with the values and the energy that I'm with the group of people that I'm in, and I also feel seen. I feel like they get me. They get my unique expression. And generally, the more people feel gotten, the more a sense of belonging and commitment to that group where they belong. So there was no rejection of her. I was just using her as a prop. It was just, we're infinite beings. I've been talking about this idea because our base foundation principles, there's one power, one presence, and it's infinite. But as infinite beings, we also have to make, in this finite world, we have to make choices. And that very act of making choices, or just simply by being who we are, there are things that get left out. None of us are capable to include everything. Because I've really been thinking about this idea of belonging and feeling left out. Part of that exploration has been inspired by, recently, I always have my little phases. So I'm in this phase of We Can Do Hard Things podcast with Glennon Doyle, her wife Abby, and her sister Amanda. And the content of it, the topics I'm fairly familiar with, but what I really like about it is it's just a really feminine energy. But they're also very different. And one of the episodes, they were doing their version of Myers-Briggs, and they all came out very different. And it's clear, listening to the podcast, whatever the topic is for that day, they all sort of get something different from it. They're hearing something different. They're fed by something different. They respond to it differently. And I love that. I love the different perspectives that each of them bring. It's so much more interesting than just one perspective. I also have a Zoom call every Saturday with my mother, who has dementia, and my 3 brothers. And so basically it's my 3 brothers, because my mom doesn't always know what's happening. She's just happy about it all, whatever it is. My 3 brothers are very masculine in their orientation, great people, love the conversations, but I'm very aware of how completely different. I think it's why I like the other podcasts, because they're balanced. Like, I can go, and this is like one world, this is another world, and they don't, like, I don't even have to say I think, well, I shouldn't say no. My sense is, my brothers would not care for this podcast even remotely. Not because they're bad people, not because they disagree. It's just a totally different energy. So do we see our issue about belonging? Where do we belong? No one's wrong. They're just different. And I like both of them. I like being with all this male energy, and I like being with all this female energy. And even within the female energy, there's differences. Even amongst my brothers, they're very different. Like, when we're together, we're very clear what our differences are. Well, I'm a girl, but they know their differences, even though they're pretty much, well, they're all male. I would say both groups politically are on the same page, and yet so different. So there's so many things that, like, collectively we could agree with, but then then our little groups are different, have a different vibration, our individuality has a little, so there's so many differences. And I've always been aware of it, but it's just somehow really being brought forth more and more in my awareness, because even speaking on a Sunday, when I pray, I say, just allow me to be a vehicle to say something or that feeds people. But I'm also aware of that you all are very different. I'm like, Like, everything that I say, well, there's another perspective, or this might, or they might take it this way, or they might take it. And I'm like, how do I speak to everybody? Does anyone else have that issue about in your life? Like, I want to be open and available to everybody, but they're different, so how do I meet every either individual or group where they are, right? How do we do that? How do we create a sense of belonging with all these different perspectives and different, the perspectives on how I interpret it, and interpretations was the word I was thinking of. So this past week, I was in a very, dynamic, that's a good word, a very dynamic discussion with a group of people who are spiritually in alignment with what I believe. And I spent a lot of time on these dialogues, because what was interesting was, even though we are spiritually in alignment, there were a lot of different perspectives being shared. And what I love is there's been a lot of growth as a spiritual group of how to communicate with each other. So it was very respectful. It's like, oh, I hear what you're saying, and I agree with that, and there's always like a both and. But still, there became this like people who were saying, well, I don't know if I feel like I really belong here anymore. And interestingly, I've had conversations with people in this group for the last 6 or 7 months, more one-on-one conversations. Oh, I don't know if I really belong to this group. And so as I started hearing it in this conversation this week, I'm like, wow, there's a lot of people who are feeling this way. How do we get here? And even the people who I would say are the owners of the group, like you say, they're sort of the definition of the group, even they were saying they didn't feel like they belong. I'm like, wow, they don't even feel like they belong. What is going on? And so I think it's this curiosity, and what happens is people's feelings get hurt, because we can say, yes, we belong to everywhere, but if someone comes and you have such a different perspective, then immediately we are more aware of the differences, right? I love diversity and inclusion, and I absolutely think it's essential into the growth and evolution of our planet. But I might want to say uniqueness, or I think if we're always focusing on diversity, isn't it interesting that we suddenly have a world that's feels so divisive? We're constantly separating and saying, well, we have to honor all the diversity, so our attention is on what makes us different. And there's a reason why. I'm sorry, I have an itch in my throat right now. And there's a reason why, because we have our own unique expressions, and we are about allowing our fullness of our unique self to be expressed. But the more I have a unique self to express, the more it can feel like I'm making someone else wrong. Thank you very much. Thanks. And so like I wrote something, and I felt no adversity towards anyone else. I was just saying what I thought. And then someone said, well, now I feel like I have to defend my position. And I'm like, I wasn't making your decision wrong. I'm so sorry. I think I got it. I'm not making your decision wrong. It's a both and. But it was very hard for us to get to that place of both and. That when you're with a group of people, you want to feel safe. And part of feeling safe is that in general, the way I understand things we mirror each other. That's when I feel like I belong the most. I don't know if this statistic is true. I didn't look it up. It's one of the TED Talks that I heard this past week. The gentleman said that 1 out of 4 adults are estranged from their parents. That's a huge number. Loneliness is an epidemic. Isolation is an epidemic like never before. That in our passion for self-expression, we all want to be seen and we want to be heard, but it's very hard to hear everybody. Because that's a lot of people. So even in this group that I'm part of, it's a big group. So what I was noticing is that as everyone was sharing their individual perspectives, the next person sharing wasn't going, oh, I so hear what you're saying, da-da-da, and so I so hear what you're saying, and I so hear what you're saying, and now what I want to say. That would take forever. So what's happening is people are sharing from the depths of their being, a lot of different people, and this is like within a day, so it's not like it's elongated where you have a lot of time. But they're not feeling heard. No one's coming back and saying, I hear you, I value what you're saying, and it really touches me. Someone just jumps in and says, well, here's my perspective. So immediately you feel like, I just shared it, nobody acknowledged it, nobody said they heard what I said. And so I'm beginning to, as I'm watching this, I'm thinking, because I'm noticing I'm feeling that, like I spent a long time on a brilliant post, and I only got a few shout outs, I wanted to be heard. And I'm like, I wasn't like that, but I was just noticing that feeling of, oh, I feel like suddenly I've just put all this energy into it. But then I started noticing everyone was doing that. Like nobody, like you just didn't have time to acknowledge. Again, this is part of this infinite world that we're living in, and as our foundation is oneness and it's infinite, and we want to honor all the infinite perspectives, that can get exhausting, and it can get so we automatically make choices, and in making choices and choosing, we feel separation. How do we heal this? How do we deal with this? So I was being with this. But there's something about the group, the spiritual group that I'm in, that I don't sense in the We Can Do Hard Things podcast, and definitely in my brothers, is there's not a spiritual base. Like We Can Do Hard Things, they once in a while will touch on it, but it's not the base of their podcast. It's definitely not the base of my brothers. In this group that I'm in, it is the base. This awareness that though we all have different perspectives, we are all sourced from the same thing. So then I shared with them a video I referred to last week where the gentleman was talking about, he was from Liberia and he went to Kuwait and talked about how trying to fit in there, Syria, how he tried to fit in there, Netherlands, how he tried to fit in there, and he never felt like he quite belonged. And then he finally said, oh, I'm looking at this the wrong way. I'm looking at, do I belong to them versus do they belong to me? That's the key. Can I allow people that have very different perspectives than me? And, well, I want to do the whole range. There's people with very different perspectives from me, but there's people who, like, just subtly, I love my brothers, but we're all a little bit different. In the podcast, they're a collective, but they're all very different. Not very different, little differences. So whether it's little differences or huge differences, do they belong to me? Because ultimately, we are the ones who are responsible to bring our sense of belonging. We are the ones who claim if someone belongs to us or not. And when that energy is shifted as, do I belong to them? Do they belong to me? I remember I actually got this once when I was working at Agape. Well, Agape is a big spiritual community, thousands of people. And I was there for 3 years, and then I started working on staff for 3 more years. And I had an engagement party. And of course, I can't invite everybody, so you have to pick and choose. And one of my, I also had a huge class, so I couldn't invite everyone from my class, 60 people. So one of the members who in my class who were not invited came, and they were so vulnerable. And they said, I was really hurt that you didn't invite me. And she said, I really was looking at what I was hurt about, and I didn't feel included. I didn't feel like I belonged in the inner circle. Because when you're in the inner circle, now you belong. And I hadn't looked at it that way before. I could see why she said that, but I hadn't experienced it. So who's claiming who belongs? I'd also had a conversation with the minister of that church, and it was just a one-off conversation. And he was sharing, at that point in his life, he felt very lonely. He felt isolated. So he sort of, in this community of thousands, is seen like the center of who belongs, and he himself doesn't feel like he has connection and belonging. He knows he's serving, but he doesn't know who his people are, who he can turn to, and felt loneliness and isolation. Who's the one who claims who belongs and who doesn't? My brothers aren't like consciously saying, well, this is who we are as a family, and you have to be like this to be part of this family. It's just who they are. The podcast, it's just who they are. We are just who we are, and so sometimes our just very nature says, so here's what I want to say. Who we are creates separation if we don't know who we are. So if I say you belong to me, even that can be a problem. Because if I say me and I mean my finite self, well, I have a personality, I have a vibration, I have a certain way of being. That's a very limited world. And so people say, well, I don't really resonate with that, so that doesn't work. But if I know you belong to me, and I mean by the me is the great I am, it all begins and ends with the I am. And when I know that the I am is my source, and you belong to me, meaning you belong to the I am of me, the most intimate place of my heart. I am isn't some abstract concept. It is the most intimate place of your heart. When you say I, you have just called forth the infinite, eternal nature of pure spirit in the most intimate and personal way. So the I am of me can include everybody. And so what happened with this beautiful group that I was in is that the energy shifted like that. All the people who were saying, I don't feel like, everyone's like, everyone, like, there was just suddenly, it was like a love fest after that. It was just like, of course we all belong to each other. Of course we are in harmony. We have different opinions and perspectives. We couldn't get there as long as we were focused on our individual perspectives, our uniqueness, our unique way of seeing things. As long as that was our soul identity, we were bumping up against each other. But the moment we remembered, it was called forth that yes, and our true identity is the I am, the healing happened instantly. And this is the power of knowing, as you were saying, is that the home is within us. The home is within us. And until we know that, we're going to be bumping up against not belonging a lot of our life, whether it's at work, whether it's in the world, whether it's in your community, whether it's in your spiritual community, whether it's with your family. It's Thanksgiving time. I'm different than my family of origin, friend group. We'll always be bumping up against I don't belong if my primary identity is my individual human self. I will constantly, as we heard in the sharing, I will constantly feel like I belong when I remember that I am that I am the place, and everybody, whether I disagree with them or agree with them or whatever the degrees is a part of me. I choose to know who I am and to know that everybody on this planet, all sentient life form, is a part of me. And that's when our heart opens up into infinity. That's when our heart opens without limitation, without boundaries of us versus them. We have that, but our truest identity is the I am. So this idea of what our home is, for what I actually started a blog years ago, and this was actually my first topic, was there's no place like home. And the way I just found it for myself, and I know all of you have found it in your ways. I knew the New Thought teaching, I'd done therapy, I knew all that stuff, but it wasn't until I made the choice to put the divine first in my life. And every day, and it had to be in a tangible way. So anyone who knows me, who's done my covenant groups or been in some of my classes, I ask people to commit to doing spiritual practices, meditation, or even if it's just breathing, just breathe. Meditation and prayer, journaling, exercise. It's so interesting. I was there last podcast on We Can Do Hard Things. The woman was doing a lot of healing work, and she goes, oh, and I finally found a way to heal myself. It's through breathing, walking, and journaling. I'm like, wow, that's exactly what I did. But it's the intention. It was the intention. I knew I had to find a way not only to put the divine first, but make it tangible. It is not powerful just to have an abstract idea. The reason why I do those practices, and I actually used to tell people, I don't even think it matters what the practices are, as long as the practices are my way of saying to my subconscious mind and to all that I am, my divine self is more important to me than my human self. So no matter what my emotional life is going through, no matter how tired I am or not tired I am, no matter how busy my life is, there have been times where it's just like I never stop all day long, didn't matter, still did my spiritual practices. I never stopped, and it wasn't that the spiritual practices saved me, it was the intention. That's why intentions are so important, behind the spiritual practices, which was every single day I was saying God was more important than all of that stuff, no matter how busy I was, no matter what my financial state was, no matter what my relationship stage was, emotional, physical state, no matter what. God's first. So then, when we have those places where we don't belong, all we have to do is stop and just breathe and connect with our divine self, because we're doing it every day. It's not some abstract idea, oh, I'm doing this every day. I know that I belong to the I am. And when I belong to the I am, I know that I belong everywhere, and everywhere belongs to me. Not just as a concept, but as a living reality. Our spiritual home is the most important home for us to give ourselves to. There was a time where I went through the dark night of the soul where I was getting no feedback from the universe. Dark night of the soul is when you just sort of empty out. So it's not depression, it's just empty. And all the things that I had done weren't reaping the same benefits. But I still showed up and did the spiritual practices anyways. I never stopped. I never stopped showing up, because once you know what your true home is, you don't say, well, I'm only going to give myself when it feels good. I give myself to my home no matter what's going on in my life, including a lack of connection to my home. And ultimately, the dark night of the soul is part of a spiritual journey. It's actually a holy and sacred experience. Very difficult, but we won't get to the pearl of great price of that dark night of the soul if we stop showing up. So as we look at, and we're in this place of wonder about home, there is no permanent home. There's only one eternal home. And that's the place where we can find rest every single day, should we choose to. I do have a more internal nature, just naturally. So if I'm at an event, like I loved last night, but when I go home, the first thing I do is I just start breathing in, because sometimes I get disconnected because I get a little jittery sometimes when there's a lot of people around. That's just the way I'm built. It's not good or bad, it's just the way I'm built. So I have to take time to reconnect with the infinite I am. Regardless of what anyone else thinks, whether people like me or don't like me, or whether I said the right things or didn't say the right things, blah, blah, blah. I'm home. As Mike said, I'm enough. When we're home, we know that we're enough. We are always enough to the I am. We are always loved by the I am. We are always seen by the I am. We are never invisible. We are never rejected. We are never invisible. We are never rejected. We are never invisible. We are never rejected. We are always seen. We are always loved. We are always accepted. We are always seen. We are always accepted. We are always loved. In every breath, we are seen, we are accepted, and we are loved. And when we know that, we are always home. And one little side benefit of that, the more we become at home, the more we fully self-express. So what amazed me when I put this divine presence first is within a week, I had a really powerful experience revealing to me that who I am and my path were one and the same, and it was this whole experience, because they're connected. Once we start finding our home, once I claim I am home in the I am immediately starts responding, immediately, and starts revealing to us exactly what needs to reveal for the fullness of our expression on earth. And it's never stopped. It wasn't like a moment and then it stops. It is every single day. There is greater revelation. There's greater things to learn, right? Always things to learn. Always things to grow into. Our home is not boring. Our home is not sedentary. Our home isn't just about sitting around and like, oh, I feel so comfortable, I'm never going to move. Our home is exactly the thing that's going to push us out the door and tell us to go out there and become even greater and a greater full of expression and give more and shine more and express more. Write that poem you're supposed to write. Paint that painting you're supposed to paint. Do that dance when your husband's playing music. Where's Cassie? Cassie, who, she said it last night so I could say it, who does accounting for fun. Holy smokes, it does not matter. There's no limits. There's no walls. Whatever it is, do it and do it with greatness and bigness. And then even do things you've never done before. I have never in my life done this. I'm going to do that. It's going to keep pushing you. The spiritual presence, this home that I found, did the exact opposite of sometimes how we see home as this place where we hide from the world. It is constantly pushing me out into my discomfort. Constantly asking me to grow, constantly asking me to try new things, because it knows that out there, I'm still safe, I'm still at home, and that's what I have to learn. All those little walls that I have, like, no, this is who I am, I don't do that. Let's break that wall down. You know, all these walls that I have, that I say, well, I'm not that. That's not who if you ever say, well, I don't do that because that's not who I am. You know, no walls, but that can only happen. I'm only willing to do that if I have a home that I know that when that wall breaks down, I'm still safe, I'm still home, I still belong. And so there's no greater joy in life to be at home in spirit. It's exciting, it's adventurous, but it's also comforting and tender when we need it. It's all things, and every one of us knows, when we know that I am, and I know you all know it, that everywhere we go, we are at home. And it's real. It's not just a words that we say, it's real. We actually start to feel it. In our workplace, you might not feel at home, but we keep practicing it. Those walls of separation are going to drop. It might be different. They might not express the things that you hear at church. You might hear new things there, but that's still part of you. They belong to me. You choose. Do they belong to me, or am I going to be a finite being and push them away? Everyone belongs to us. Everyone. Everyone, everything belongs to us. It's the greatest teacher, and it's the greatest joy. Let's pray. So as we begin prayer, I just want you to be with yourself and just express gratitude for who you are in this moment. Be the divine self for yourself. And just feel into your heart who you are as your own individual expression. And I want you to fully see yourself now and accept every part of you, even those parts that you might think are unlovable or unacceptable. Love them and accept them. See yourself. Love yourself. And I want you to consciously verbalize in your head your gratitude towards yourself. All those things that make you quirky, that make you unique. Be grateful. And anchored in this gratitude for yourself, know that you belong to yourself, the self that belongs to the self. And so be conscious of that right now. Just belong to yourself. You belong right where you are. You don't have to look outside of yourself. Right now, in those breaths, you belong to yourself. That you don't need to look outside of yourself ever again. You don't have to seek belonging in any group or any individual. You belong right here and right now. All that you are absolutely a star in your own world, in your own belongingness. Feel that belonging. There's no one you need to validate your belonging. It's who you validate your belonging. You choose. I belong to me. I belong to me. Make sure you say those words out loud, not just a feeling, but I belong to me. And as we breathe more and more into this I belong to me, we start to feel that this I belongs to me starts spreading way beyond just our body-mind awareness, our finite self. And we feel it including all those people who are our closest, most intimate people in our lives, our deepest friends who are our family. It might be our family of origin, our friends, or it could be a counselor, it could be a therapist, it could be a practitioner, it could be a prayer partner. A child, a pet, an animal, it could be nature. Just as we continue to say, I belong to me, let that I-ness expand into those places where we feel the most comfortable, sitting under a tree. And as we continue to allow our heart to expand, that I belong to me, and allow that I-ness to include people that you are friends with or acquaintances with, baristas, cash registers, people that you don't have any adversity to. You kind of know them. You don't know. You know them a little bit. You know them somewhat. You're familiar with them. Just your I belong to me includes all those acquaintances that you come in contact with every day. People at work, people on the freeway. Your I belong to me just continues to expand and grow. And then be conscious of the people that make you uncomfortable. The other. And this could be really strong others, and it could be just even the people that are close to you that have an otherness that might make you uncomfortable. I belong to me. Keep expanding the I belong to me. There's no separation, there is no other. So allow, if you can, if it starts to get uncomfortable, please do not go past a comfort level. This is only where we are comfortable. There's no race. But if we can we allow I belong to me? In the absolute, this is not to encourage or to support people who are hurtful or harmful. Boundaries and borders are absolutely essential, but in the absolute presence the border in the human realm, but in the absolute, I belong to me. Because there's no place where this I stops and something else begins. So this is our work. This is our work as human beings, those walls that we start to feel as we expand. We don't want to pretend they're not there. And so today we're not pretending those walls aren't there, those walls of protection, of care, of otherness. But today I'm inviting us to be willing to, on one level of our being, in the deepest spiritual identity of our soul, to be willing to start stretching our identity of the I am to include all life, to include all beings. It takes work, and that's why we're here. That's why we're on this spiritual journey, is can we open our heart to infinity? Can we open ourselves to the I am and still be safe? Still be safe, that's key. Do I feel safe now, or am I feeling unsafe now? And we are tender with ourselves, and we care for ourselves, and we start to feel unsafe. I belong to me, I care for you, and this border, I've hit my border, and that's okay. I belong to me. I am the source. I am the authority of my journey. I am the lover of my journey. I belong to me. But how grateful I know wherever we are on this journey, and I am still on the journey with all of you. I know that I know in the absolute place. I know that I know in that absolute place. I know that I am absolute place. That the I am of me is love as all life. And that nothing can limit this love, that nothing can ever hurt, harm, or endanger this love, that nothing can ever touch this love. This love is absolutely free from all human conditions, from all world of duality and phenomena where there's good and bad. It is free from all of this. This I am that I am is in the absolute, untouchable freedom, joy, love, peace, harmony. This I am is the place where I choose to live my life from. The I am of me. I am me. I belong to me. The absolute of the pure being belongs to me, the finite self. I am. I am. I am pure, unlimited love. I am a love that can never be hurt, harmed, or endangered. I am peace. I am creativity. I am joy. I am abundance. I am beauty. I am good. I am harmonious. I am. I am. This is my true identity. I am. Nothing can ever stop me from choosing my true identity. Nothing in this world will ever stop me from choosing my true identity today, in this moment. I am. I am the Alpha and the Omega. I am that I am. I am all life, and I am free from all conditions and circumstance. I am. And deep and abiding gratitude for the I amness that is alive and activated as every single one of us here and now. I just say thank you, God. Thank you, God, for this I am that is fully present. Whether we see it or not, it is always there through all life, through this entire planet and all sentient life form. I am. In deep abiding gratitude, we just say thank you, thank you, thank you. I am of my being. Thank you, thank you, thank you. I am of my being. I belong to me, and me belongs to I am. It is good. And in joy and in peace, we let this word being down, knowing as it is spoken, it is done, as we say together, and so it is.
I walk in God in all I do. I walk in God in all that I say.